How many Masters is this for you?
20, more than 20. First one was 97. I didn't go 98. I think I was there 99. So it's probably 20 something.
What was it like having no one there?
Really, really strange. I mean, there's no way to say it other than how odd it was. Just because you're so used to seeing it framed by thousands of people. And I said it on the broadcast, and I'm always cautious to come across as being too flowery golf guy. But I mean it. Like the people at Augusta National during the Masters, like they're the soul of the tournament. Like they're the soundtrack of the tournament. They're the ones that were chanting Tiger, Tiger, Tiger in 19. And so without it, just the depth perception of everything was weird. What it looked like, what it sounded like, everything that frames what the tournament normally feels like was absent. But the course is still the course. And, so that's still great. But it's like a great venue that just doesn't have the thing that elevates it even further.
So Dustin wins in historic fashion, and it wasn't all that dramatic towards the end.
Oh.
But you've known him a long time, and I think you've shared the story before, but I don't know if you can go more into depth on this because because we're always desperate to try to figure out some angle, especially when he's just tearing up the course. It's like, oh, remember the U.S. Open? What was it like? He doubled early with the lead on a Sunday, and then he threw up, right?
Well, I mean, you mean his major championship history?
Yeah, like the first one where he thought he was going to win the U.S. Open, and then he didn't. Remember we talked about this, where he went behind like a porta-john while he yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think that was early in his ascent, and the thing about the way he carries himself is that you can trick yourself into thinking that he doesn't care or that he's impervious. Neither of those are true. And I think what happened in 10 at Pebble is you can glide through Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then it's Sunday and you're 18 away from changing who you are forever in golf circles. And then you make a couple big numbers and you're like, hold on, I got to puke. I mean, it's a lot. It hits you quick, life comes at you fast, as they say. And I think, that was the one where he just wasn't ready. And that's fine. I mean, I don't think anyone knows what it is until they're in it. But he's also had some of the shittiest luck I've ever seen in majors. Like, I'll say it until I'm dead. Whistling Straits, he hits it in a bunker. And he didn't know it was a bunker because there was friggin' garbage and people in it.
That was ridiculous. Like, there's the code of golf that people outside of golf have a hard time with. And part of me is always like, look, if golf wants to be that, then let golf be golf. But that one was so ridiculous. It looked like people just had been standing there, and then he's grabbing his club. Yeah, right, exactly.
Because they were standing there. Like, well, the things you'll notice at Augusta, there are very few people in any of the traps. You don't come across.
I counted 0 when I was there.
You don't find rubbish and like Snickers wrappers and footprints because they just aren't there. So that was unlucky. Chambers Bay, which was the U.S. Open out in Washington, is unluckier than anything maybe that has ever happened to him because he hit this incredible shot on the 18th hole, which is a par 5, and it stayed on top of this hill. Not one ball that I saw stayed up where his ball did. It should have rolled back for like a tap and eagle. But where it stayed, he makes a mess of it and ends up 3-putting and doesn't make it into a playoff. That's incredibly unlucky. And all of that kind of creates this narrative's this tricky word now. That
I hate it. I hate it. Narrative is the word that is used preceding a terrible point being made.
That and also it's used to be the
like
thing,
dismissive to the truth.
Kinda. Yeah. Well, there's a narrative. Well,
here's a perfect example. Remember when Iowa was really good record-wise and hadn't played anybody? Now they ended up playing really well against Michigan State in the Big Ten, but they hadn't played anyone. And then Big Ten people were like, well, there's this narrative that Iowa hasn't played anyone. You're like, no, replace narrative with it is true.
And then didn't they play Stanford and get worked?
They did in that game, but they played well against a good Michigan State team where I after that, I was like, okay, but my point leading up to that was, and everybody knows how I love Iowa and Waterloo, but I just, I'm like, it's okay to admit. And I just, this narrative rant, I could do maybe a 30-minute bit on the word narrative and how often it's used. Like I heard somebody say, well, I think the narrative that Lamar Jackson can't guide you to a comeback is dead. What, when they were down 10-7 to the Colts?
Yeah.
Like, that's it? All right.
Right. So narrative is this catch-all word that tends to mean we're reciting facts that maybe you don't like. I don't know. Whatever it is that came to define Dustin Johnson in the majors. Look, it was rooted in truth. He had a number of opportunities, and they, for one, whether it's poor luck, I think a lousy ruling, or just he didn't deliver, he hadn't done it. And so it was not unreasonable. And I was one of them, Ryan, that said, how can you be as good as he is and have a gear that maybe only you have, where you play to your ceiling and you're spookier than anybody else out there? Like, no one can sniff your best, but you've only got one major. One. Well, now he's got two, and two's a whole lot more than one in major championship circles, especially when you shoot 20 under at Augusta, and especially coming off what he did in the fall win in the playoff, where he's in the sweet spot of his career. And it's reasonable after what he did at the end of the year and what he did this week at Augusta to say, he'll add considerably to this pile. But I mean, whatever, dude, he's on a jet to St. Bart's. He's good, man. He is real good. Life's good.
Did anyone try to throw Paulina out? They're like, who's this girl just walking around in the woods by herself?
No, I think they know Paul. I think Pauline is fairly well known. We're like, oh, I know her. And you know what? Like, there's some really cool stories about. He had a tough family dynamic. He had some difficult, just trying to live up to expectations of family. And now, like, this Gretzky family has totally embraced him, and he knows what it is to be loved. And I mean, this is really, deep stuff, but it's real. And I think it's part of the reason why he doesn't sweat a lot of stuff. He knows he's loved. He knows he's really good. And, this week, everybody else knows that he's kind of in that you're playing for second if I play like this bit.
Okay, question for you. Is Bryson Brooks, except that nobody likes him?
Oh, I think people like Brooks. I think the Bryson thing's tough. That's
what I mean. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think that they're and DJ's in the same boat too. It's rare to truly not give a shit what anyone thinks about you. Right. It really is. We've talked about this. I wrestle with, like, it's hard to just totally dismiss people being like, you suck. You're like, what? Wait, what? But DJ, Koepka, don't care. Bryson, I think, is different. I think he would prefer that people didn't dislike him, but the packaging of his messages makes it hard. When you sit there at Augusta National and say, well, 67's par for me, I'll tell you right now, the membership at Augusta is like, is that right? And then when he goes out and doesn't play particularly well, I don't think you have people weeping for him. And yet he's incredibly compelling as a storyline. He's going to hit it 8 miles and this and that. And before the Masters, anyone that asked me is like, well, is Bryson going to win? I was like, no, not if he doesn't putt better. Like, he doesn't putt well there. You got to putt at that place. Got to. And that's not the reason why he didn't win, but he's a guy that he needs desperately someone to explain to him how to package his messaging in a way that isn't going to make people want to openly root against him.
He's good for golf. He's absolutely good. He is the thing that you need. You need it in the NBA. You need it in the NFL. You need these storylines. Like, we're not that complicated. There's a reason why cop shows keep getting picked up. All right. Because there's bad guys. Right. And he's really good for a sport that I think at times lacks that. Where I remember first learning about the sport and asking buddies, I was like, well, who do you hate? Like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, who are the Pistons? Who are
right.
And there's like, what are you talking about? Like, I root for everyone. I'm like, you root for every guy? They're like, yeah, I root for good golf. And I go, that's
a great point. Like, there's no one sitting on their couch back in like the 80s or 90s going, I hate that Ben Crenshaw. God, I hope he hits it in the water. Man, look at Davis Love. You suck. No one's thinking that. But guys like Bryson.
Ooh, Freddie swing. So
everyone
good.
Loves Fred.
I know, everybody loves
this day.
Right. Like Freddie was one of our P1s back in the day of the radio show. So shout out to Freddie Couples.
I saw him down there. He's still, beauty of Fred is he will never change. He sees me and immediately it's like 20 questions about sports stuff. And we're walking and he's changing the channel in his head. I'm trying to keep up and answer the questions. He's the best. But
wait, was he the golfer? Was he the guy that always texted you about the show? Who was the guy that definitely didn't like me? Was it? I'm trying to remember.
That's a long list.
I think there was one guy that was constantly like, "What's his story? Was it Stuart Appleby?" No,
no, I don't think I've ever gotten a text from Stuart Appleby. No, Fred, but like it certainly wasn't Fred.
It wasn't Freddie. I was very happy with Freddie's feedback.
He was all about SVP and Russillo. Loved it. But you're right. The sport, I shouldn't say desperately needs. It benefits from
absolutely.
It benefits from a DeChambeau who captures the attention like Daly did back in the day of a guy that's just going to hit it 8 miles, but he's also got that sort of advanced trigonometry mind of figuring out all the numbers and all the rest of it. And I mean, what he did at Winged Foot can't be dismissed. It wasn't an accident. He's going to do that more. To show up at Augusta and have everybody just presume that he'll continue to do that, it's not the worst thing probably for him or for casual fans to be reminded, well, no, that's just not how it works. Doesn't go like that. It might for Dustin, like, and he's the guy like, hey, like you guys be down there and ooh and ah over him. Like if I want to swing at it, I can hit it 352, I can hit it really far if I want to.
I can't believe we took this long to get to Tiger. We could talk about the 10 on one hole. It just didn't happen for him this week. Update me on all things Tiger and your personal relationship as well.
Well, I think the thing I noticed, Ryan, is that they're like, it's house money, man. It's house money.
He's totally at peace, right?
1,000%. Yeah. That's the word. And it might sound odd to say that about the guy who's been the guy. He's been the yardstick and everybody's measured off him. But what he got last year and going back to that place, and when he talked about Charlie and how much that hug meant, like he's not a guy that lets emotion bubble to the surface. But he got teary in the press conference talking about it. And the Masters put out something where he was talking about how much it meant to him, and he couldn't go on. And he said, I'm sorry. And I swear to God, like watching that on my phone, I've known him a long time, as you know, and I thought that's the most vulnerable and human I've ever seen him talking about his boy and how much it meant to him. And that's why I have said consistently since last year that, of course, he wants to beat Jack. Of course, he's wanted to beat Jack forever. Wants to get to 19. If 15's the end and that's it, that's how it ends for him. Hugging his boy and his girl in the same spot where he hugged his dad. I promise you, he's good. Cosmically with the world, he is. All bets are squared. I don't know you. You don't know me. I am good. And you saw that this week, man. He didn't stress. He smiled at his mistakes. He made a 10, man. A 10. And then you know what he did? He birdied 5 of the next 6 holes. Like, to me, that was like, I mean, he wasn't lost because it was Tiger. But like he made the biggest number he's ever made in his life. And instead of getting all pissed off, he's just like, all right, well, let's see what we can do here. But I think he's good with the world. Like he'll keep trying to win majors for sure. And at some point he'll forget how much the Charlie thing meant and he'll want to win again. Like to the point that fire really comes back and he won't be as peaceful. But this week, all I saw was a guy who was totally right with the whole bit.
When you and I, first started doing the show, that's 2009. So at that point, we were like, okay, Tiger's, there was no conversation around him not catching Jack. It was how many more does he have than Jack, right? Because of the pace and everything. And at that point, look, there'd been stuff where it was all over the place, but you still kind of thought, maybe I should have had to back it up. I probably should have backed it up a few years prior to maybe when you and I first started. Because what was 2008, the Rocco Mediate U.S. Open? That was
exactly,
ridiculous.
But he did that on the whole broken leg and the whatever. And I mean, like the body breakdown was real, but still, your point holds water. Like even banged up Tiger, it wasn't a matter of Like, it was a matter of how many more, not
exactly.
if.
Okay, all right. So we're on the same page there as far as the timeline. Then the timeline starts to fall apart, and then it becomes like he's never going to golf again. Which it was a lot of weird stuff where it was like, oh, he's good, he's hurt. Oh, he's good, he's hurt. And I'm just happy to see the guy healthy and out there. And I know you've always been my guide with him, and the way you talk about him, like, I'll just go, hey, I defer to Scott on this kind of stuff, and what you just shared with us is perfect. But could there be an argument to be made? Because I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if he doesn't catch Jack, he doesn't catch Jack. We really just count. That's what we do. And the guy that has less than the other guy can't be better than him. But I'm sure I've read this. The depth of this field now compared to what it was, would that be the argument that's pro Tiger, where the people that like to shit on the Celtics NBA championships in the 60s and try to say those don't count, is that enough of a pro Tiger thing, depending on if he doesn't ever catch Jack?
Probably, because, I mean, all I read is that Jordan played against plumbers. Somehow that's the narrative, another narrative. But somehow that's the talking point about Jordan, is like, they'll show a picture against like Lambeer and go, this is who he played against. Like, okay, that's a fun trick. I mean, you want to go back and rewrite what the bad boys and the Celtics and whatever of that era. We're not great generationally giving any credit to the past. So I'm always hesitant to say, like, that Jack didn't play against a bunch of badasses, because he certainly did. I mean, he's playing against Palmer and Player, and he's playing against Watson and Weiskopf and Floyd and Trevino, and I mean, I could keep going, but there were a bunch of guys. But it certainly feels, Ryan, that
he missed Sam Snead, right?
Snead was old when Jack was doing his thing, but like the era of his real, and Jack's prime was ridiculous. I mean, it spanned a 20-some-odd year chunk where he was just insane. But how, like, the depth now worldwide of player, and the number of people who turn up that I think you can reasonably say can win any one major, it certainly feels deeper. Now, I can't tell you, young Scott wasn't super up to date on like who the best 50 players were. I don't know if I can compare it apples to apples. But if Tiger doesn't get there, I mean, you could point to that he won more tournaments, because he will have won more tournaments than Jack did. But I mean, Tiger would also tell you he'd trade in 20 of the regular ones for 3 more majors, just because when we count, the majors have more weight. But I just think it's generational. The people that saw Tiger be Tiger will never believe anybody was better than him. And the people, I didn't really see Jack, I mean, I saw the tail end of it. But if you go back and look at like his stats, there was like a 10-year stretch where he basically was like first, second, or third, 80% of the majors. It was preposterous what he did. Like, he never played bad in majors, never. But like I said, anytime it comes to eras in really any sport, I think we just don't do a great job, because we're always going to lean in the direction of the era we remember best. I think I do it with Jordan for sure.
I'm always fascinated with the Augusta part of it. I was lucky enough to go. It's one of the few times I've been somewhere where, like whenever you had those buddies back in those show days, right? Like, man, I hope Fish plays for 5 hours. I'm like, I don't, like, 2.5 maybe, and then let's go do something else. Like 5 hours? No, I don't want to be here for 5 hours. I don't know what I would want to watch for 5 hours, but Augusta was the first thing in a long time where I'd given my friend Sully the Saturday passes, because I had to make it back to Connecticut, and you told me don't try to get out of Atlanta on Sunday after the Masters. So I gave Sully the passes, and then that Saturday morning I was kind of jealous that I'd given him the pass, because I didn't want to leave. So your attachment to it is real. What's it like being, I don't know if elder statesman is the right term, because let's face it, the Masters crew isn't the youngest group of all time. But what's it like for somebody like you to have this connection to a place very few have a connection to or are allowed to?
It's not the Vans Warped Tour there for sure. It's not that. It's not Coachella-ish. No, it's a place that people go for. If you're lucky, that you go for a long time. Like, Jim started going there in the mid '80s. I went there in '97 was the first year, which, when you start playing that back in your mind is when that's when it's hard to make sense of it, right? Like, that it's been that long that I've been doing anything, but it is. I've been going there since '97. So it's, you know how, and I'm glad you saw it, because I really feel, and it helps to the person that likes your podcast, that knows your sensibilities, that maybe doesn't get me, or think that maybe they think I'm full of shit. But when they hear you say it, they're like, oh, okay. Like, it's that good, that place. It's better than you think it's going to be, to a factor of 10. And you're just like, nothing I say to you is going to make you get it unless you come here and see it. It's just, nothing is. Because it's like if you go to some club and there's like a VIP and you're like, well, how good could it be? And you get there, you're like, oh, it's like really uber VIP. Like, I didn't even know this world existed. And now here I am.
Jamie Kennedy's here.
There you go. All of them. Like, we're not in the one where we can see the special VIP. We're in the spot. And so that place, it defies your belief of what something can be in a lot of ways. And so I've been lucky enough to go there for long enough where I know people. And I mean, I'm friendly with, like, whether it's the people, the security that we see walking in, whether it's, the guys that work over at the clubhouse who I've known for 20 years, man. Like, it's cool when you walk in and they got you. Like, what do you need? They treat you like you're a member, and I'm not. I'm there to work like they
Okay,
are.
well, that's my question. What's the membership status? How does that work?
I have no idea.
Is there an online form?
I know that it doesn't matter for me, because it's not like, you know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
but this is what is important for you to explain to us, is that I know that answer, but so many people are like, well, then if Scott can't, one day, could Scott be a member at Augusta? Yeah, right. You're like, it's stupid to even ask. Why?
No, of course not. I mean, and it's not, and here's the thing, like, someplace that you're not going to ever be a member might feel like they would not make you feel welcome. That's not it.
Not
like,
at all.
You feel incredibly welcome. And people ask me, like, oh,
that's what they do there. That's what they do there. When you think like elitist golf nerd, get in the hole guy and all the stuff that some of the audience listening right now can't stand. Some people love that. Okay. When you're there, Augusta kind of rewards you for getting there. Like, that's part of the embrace, where here are these massive expectations, and yet it does exceed all this. Like, it's the Masters. I had high expectations and I was in love with it, and they were shattered. And there isn't the uppity South, like, oh, you should be lucky you're here. It's once you're through the gates, okay, man, good for you. You made it. Let's have an awesome 5 days, because the Wednesday part is awesome too. So
for sure,
that's the point that I think is something people can't understand when they've never gone.
Right. And I've the way I've always just explained it is, I've never felt more welcome in a place. But at the same time, it's like, if you get invited to the nicest, if you have that friend who has like the really nice house with this, like, well, I mean, like, I lived in a townhouse and we had stuff, but it wasn't like, you didn't have to worry about where you put your feet. Like, when you walked in, you know what I mean? You didn't have to worry. Do I take my shoes off? Like, if I sit on something, you feel comfortable, because it's like, it's not like you're worried about you're going to break something.
Yeah, right. I don't have my rooms aren't named.
There you go. All right. Well, meet me in the cinnamon bark room.
Yeah, no. We'll be in the welcoming den.
No, we just have a TV in here. You can sit wherever you want. I never feel more welcome, but I never feel more like I want to make sure that I act right. And in the same way, if you go to a really nice home, you're happy you've been invited, but you don't want to do something to not be invited because you acted the fool. And I think it governs people in that way. You don't hear people yelling mashed potatoes and get in the hole. Like, that guy's not really there. It's not a guy that's had 17 PBRs and a lipper in, who just can't wait to maybe get nude and run around like the 17th fairway. Like, it's just not like that. People, and if that guy is there, some about it, his internal governor kicks in. He's like, maybe I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to yell it. I'm going to sit right here and just keep myself together.
There's definitely 17 cc's in a dip-in guy there, though. But you're right. Like, for some reason, he finds a way to keep it down
he just
the middle
doesn't.
a little
Even
bit
if he's
more.
got the croquis going, he's not going to wear the flip-flops. He's going to put on some Allbirds and just try to keep it together. It's and in that way, I mean, maybe it sounds like I'm saying two things at once. Like, on the one hand, it's this, but on the other hand, it's that. The membership there they know that I appreciate their tournament. They know I enjoy being there. And they've been incredibly kind and welcoming to us with ESPN, to me in particular. And so I'm always grateful for that. But like when you talk about membership, I think Jim Nantz could be a member someday. I mean, I think his association with that place is such that I would think it would make sense for him at some point. But like Arnold Palmer waited like until he was an older guy. It's not like they just call you up one day and go, "Hey man, come on down. We want to have a dinner and then you're going to get a coat." Like it's not, or maybe they do. Honest to God, I don't know, and I'm never going to find out.
I'm afraid if you were at a 7 to 8% chance of being a member, just talking about it puts you at like a 6. So
yeah,
I'm worried.
I don't think it's something you don't speak about it necessarily. But in my case, again, like since you can't have less of a chance than 0. So I just think this is my perception of how it works. I don't know.
Just in case I won't title it, Van Pelt talks about his chances of being a member at Augusta.
That would those bullet points you put in the tweet. Yeah, don't put that in there because on the off chance that maybe they're just looking for somebody like me to be part of the group.
All right, that's Scott Van Pelt. You can watch him on SportsCenter. He does hits on Get Up and a bunch of other stuff.
They haven't asked me on there yet, but that's fine. They're late. They're early. I'm late.
He's really becoming one to watch in the industry.
Trying my best, pal. Good to be with you.